let's do this. Okay, so don't worry about this. This is not going to be seen by most people, and the main value for founders is that you can use this to shortcut some investor meetings.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. So, like I know a little. Like you're in Nigeria right now. You're in On Deck. Just tell me your story. Like, what's your background and why did you start Onboard Base? Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a product designer and a software engineer. And I started Onboard Base late last year when I noticed something I did very repeatedly was a huge problem, right? So anytime I join teams or lead teams, something happens a lot. I get pasted credentials, right? Login variables or environment variables over Slack, right? Copy and paste, hey, get started with work, right? And for anyone who has done it before, even you personally, I'm sure you've shared sensitive information over Slack or communication channel before, right? Everyone has done it. But for developers, it happens very often and too often for it not to be an issue. And this is literally within your workspace and is a data breach waiting to happen because the largest concern to data breaches is negligence. And this creeps in within the workspace. So I started to think, hey, why don't we build a solution that takes away the security issues and also exponentially increases productivity within the workspace? And that's where Onboard Base came along, right? I took note that for this solution to actually work well, it had to be as seamless as using Slack, right? Because one of the reasons why we use Slack or communication channel is because it's super convenient to use, right? So it's very easy to say, just copy and paste it. And that's where Onboard Base actually came along. Hey, why don't we do this right where teams are working? They're working in their terminals, they're working in their text editors, they're working in their GitLabs, they're working in their GitHubs, they're working in their cloud providers, in their languages. Let's sync this directly where they work. They don't have to exchange keys, but they can always work with these keys repeatedly without anything exchanging hands. So take away the security risks, take away the productivity issues, and let teams 10x their experience. That is what Onboard Base aimed and is solving currently. And that's how Onboard Base actually started.
Yeah, but you messaged something that you said that I want to dig into is you started out with basically LastPass or 1Password for developers.
Yeah.
And then you're changing to more of a collaboration language.
Yeah.
What was that realization journey?
Okay, so we started off with solving for environment variables, right? So environment variables is something engineers use a lot, right? Let us inject this into their workflows. But as we continuously built, we found out that teams are not just managing environment variables on Onboard Base, but they're also managing things like SSH, password credentials within Onboard Base to inject it within their workflow. So we started speaking to them and started adding more value on this front. So we have different types of secrets right now. We have a login credential type secret, we have an environment variable type secret, and we have an SSH type secret. So you manage this on Onboard Base and inject it within your workflow. So you don't need employees to copy and paste this anywhere else, right? They just need to actively work with this, right? We didn't actually come up with the collaborative workspace, right? We started it, hey, manage this with Onboard Base, inject it with your own flow. But employees are like, you know what? We inject this within our flow and actively work with this. Like, it's so collaborative and secure for us. And they describe it as a collaborative product development, right? That's how our companies have described it. So we took it as a different step further and say, okay, you know what? This is a collaborative and secure workspace for dev teams. Everything within your ecosystem, we can answer this question for you and go even further. So that is how we started making it as a collaborative workspace. So it's not just something you just manage and go, right? It syncs everywhere you go into, but we want to even add more values, right? And that's how we started adding things like commands and tunnels. Right now with Onboard Base, you don't need ngrok anymore. Within your Onboard Base flow, you can easily spin up a tunnel and actively work with it with no extra thing needed. That's how we've kind of seen it so far.
And what can you describe your current users?
Yeah.
I've seen a bit of the numbers, but just talk about the qualitative side of things.
We have 70 teams actually using this with over 160 users. We've seen more of startups and SMBs adopting it. So 3 to 4 teammates adopting it a whole lot more than enterprise, right? Because that's been our major focus. But we've seen teams begin to pay for it when they are about 78 users team size. So that's when we begin to see teams actually pay for it. But we've seen more startups.
Not 7.
Yes.
7 to 8 users. Got it. Yep.
Yeah. So that's how we've kind of seen it.
And customer acquisition from like your friends?
So customer acquisition has been basically from my network personally. We've done almost no marketing at all, right? And one of the reasons, because as an ideal customer persona, which I am, ads will not sell for me, right? What will sell for me is word of mouth and tutorials, and that is what we mostly targeted. And we've done this within communities that I'm part of, and this is what has brought us 70 teams so far, referrals and teams within specific communities so far.
Yeah, and you're starting to charge money. From what I understand, some of them are paying, some of them are not. And your plan is like $6 per user per month, something like that.
Yes.
And obviously, yeah. Okay. Okay. And then what's the on deck story? You're joining on deck, or have you been
okay? So yeah,
already?
we joined ODX 1, which started in December. We accepted into the program about 2,000 applications, but we were one of the fortunate people to accepted into the program, and it was amazing, right? On deck is something I'll advise anyone who is willing to go through, because the experience is great, the people are great, and our build advisor was awesome. His name is Ty, and a week ago we did demo day. Demo day for On Deck is a bit different from the rest. It's a week whereby they showcase our product in front of investors, and we've gotten a whole lot of investor activity since then. I've been having calls from last week to this week back to back, which has been amazing, from teams I cannot actually mention, but it's been hugely excited, right? And these are teams I think are prospective acquisition teams, right? Teams I would say, hey, if anyone asks me who would acquire Onboard Base, I would mention this. They're actually looking at Onboard Base because they are not doing anything within the space, but we are, right? We have the market and we understand the product. I tell anyone, it takes someone who has gone through this process repeatedly to actually build out this product.
Got it. Yeah, that's very awesome, and congrats on completing On Deck. It's a big milestone. Okay, so you're raising a seed now. I won't ask details here, but do you think it's worth going through the deck? Is that something that we can share?
Yeah, we can obviously go through it. The track tells you a bit more about our story, where we are, and a bit more of how I present the product. I'm very visual, so the deck is actually quite visual as well.
Okay, I will. Let me. I have it, and I'm just gonna skip to the parts that I wanted to ask you more questions about, because most, sure. I don't want to waste your time, right? Like, and you've talked about the deck a lot. Okay.
It's fine.
So first of all, this is one of the more, like, I was ready to like say like I wasn't interested, just purely based on like this domain, and that's something that we should discuss as well, like why I fear security, or why I try to avoid security. But I think this deck made me pay attention, and so whatever you did, I don't know what it is. There's probably some template or whatever, but also you put your designer flair on it, right? So I think this was a really good hook. I like the numbers. This really emphasizes the scope of the problem, and it's partially something I find about security-based startups is that you have to put the fear of God in people, right? Like a lot of times I'm not security-minded, I'm not security conscious, but I know it's something I should take care of. I just don't have numbers in front of me, right? So all these, if they're reasonably sourced and credible, I think it's important.
Yeah.
Important, blah, 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 sharing credentials, okay. Workflow, user numbers. This one always a little bit of like, I don't know what SOM is. What is SOM?
Serviceable market. Serviceable market.
Okay, got it.
Serviceable market. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I like this. I wanted to find out more about lead and join teams. Like, is this your first company?
No, so I actually pivoted from a different product into onboard base. I pivoted from a SaaS management product into onboard base. So I've been in the SaaS space for a while now, right? I built the product I actually pivoted from was called Bellissimo. One of the reasons I found for pivoting was I was building for SMBs and startups, but I noticed that startups and SMBs don't care a lot about managing SaaS subscriptions. That was what Bellissimo was then. It's not like they don't care, but they don't actively care enough to pay for it. They can get by without it.
So are you saying like track your SaaS subscriptions, how much you're spending on each of the SaaS that you use? You know, I've heard a few of those startups. Yeah, they never work out. I don't know why.
Yeah. So small startups and SMBs don't care enough to pay for it. But not that they don't care. So
got it. Team of 7, that's a very good sign. Part of ODX Pioneer. What do you get from Pioneer? What it's to me it's like a baby YC.
Well, fair enough. Well, Pioneer is a great community. I started getting some of my early users from actually Pioneer. Right, I tested the product a whole lot with Pioneer teams, and they were super helpful. And the community is actually a great one if you are an entrepreneur looking to make waves. That was before I actually got into ODX.
Got it. That makes sense. You're intending to move to the US. Why?
Personally, it's not a region thing. I want to move to US for personal reasons, as well as a family. So it's not agnostic to the product itself.
Yeah, because you could potentially grow and hire all in Africa, and presumably that would be cheaper.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then let's keep going. This one I did stumble over, which was this is projections. How did you make these projections?
So potentially 5 million US developers in the US alone, right?
Yeah.
5 billion developers in the US alone. And that is part of the serviceable market. We are targeting an initial 1 million developer target, which are contract developers, right? And we said, okay, you know what? 1 million developers are working for sum total of 100,000 ad agencies within the US. And we can actually, out of these 100,000 agencies, get to 2,000 agencies in the US. So that is how we said, okay, you know what? Let's target 2,000 agencies to begin with in the first 18 months. And once we get there, word of mouth will take us the whole way. And the thing with developer tools is you can go from 1 million to 5 million within a month. It's almost, you almost cannot predict it, but it's quite possible because developers are actively looking for the best possible solutions, right? Once you put them front and center, they will use your product.
What makes you say that people are actively looking for a solution like this? Like, I don't know when I would look for it.
First and foremost, you don't even know you have the problem because you feel your usual flow is the right flow, right?
Yeah.
Is the right flow. But when we've seen from data breaches that the biggest cost to data breaches is negligence. And that is actually your usual flow, right? So developers need to come away from the usual flow and get into a more secure flow, right? Reasons why a whole lot of people use spreadsheets, Notion, is because they're trying to be secure and trying to be productive. But those tools were not built for it to begin with. You need something else that syncs right into how you work without changing it at all.
Yeah. And probably I should share the demo as well, but we could just go to the site. Do you have a public demo?
That is no, I don't have a public demo, but yeah.
Okay. I think the video that you shared with me, I think some form of that you can always put somewhere here.
Yeah, we're trying to put that. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna keep moving. I think this is really good. This was the one that was like, okay, like you have some vision beyond this. So let's talk about this. You said tunnels, you said commands. Part of this starts to clash with other startups that are going on. I'm curious what you see as potential competitors in this space.
So there's almost no one handling commands. And you would think about this because commands is in everything you do. Everything you literally do is based around commands. So why is no one specifically doing something around commands, right? We've spoken to teams, and most of the requests we get around onboard base are people trying to run one command or the other. So we're like, okay, so you're running these commands. Why don't we help you do this even better without you having to ask us? And you run commands not just for you as the admin personally, but for the entire team, right? So it's like this. The process is I run a command, a different teammate run a different command, another teammate run a different command. But why don't the command I run work for everyone else? They don't need to ask me. They don't need to Google it. They don't need to find it somewhere else. They just create it somewhere. Your teammates can easily go to your terminal, find it, and run it completely. Command is essential to almost everything you do as a team. There is nothing you can do without running a command. You want to start a server, you will run a command. You want to deploy something, you run a command. So
I mean,
it feels
yes.
like this flow should be exponentially increased and seamless. So that's why we've begun to actually build this flow into onboard base itself. It's essential to how onboard base works. So why don't we just make it super seamless?
Got it. And then so it looks like tunnels and commands are the first two things that will be rolling out.
Yeah. Those are we're actually actively testing it with customers. We rolled it out a couple of a week ago, and something within this flow we've actually thought about is, you know how teams are going remote, right? And I know this might be controversial, all right, but you can't send a system to everyone who is working remotely. So why don't we make it possible for you to remotely delete a code base when a teammate leaves, right? If a teammate leaves, what will you do? You ask them back for the system you sent to them, right? Which is essentially secure and handle the data, right? But if they are using your own personal system, how do you ensure that that code base is deleted or the database is deleted? How do you ensure that? No way to almost ensure that. So there's something we actively
legal
built
contracts.
Yeah, but well, that is still based on discretion. Right.
Yeah.
That's the business. There's something we actually built into onboard base that we're testing out. It works on Mac OS right now. When you remove a teammate from onboard base, it remotely deletes their code base from their system. It doesn't change anything. It deletes just the code base you've given them access to directly from onboard base. So it's an access control issue, right? You have given them the keys to work. Now you've taken away the keys and the code base to work. That's how we're kind of thinking about it.
I mean, that works until people, if they really intend to steal the code, they'll copy it out.
Yeah, that works. So that works. So we made it optional. So when you are removing someone, if you go into onboard base right now, the functionality is actually there, but it works for just Mac OS users. So we made it optional. So when you actually are removing someone from your teammates, you just select it, hey, delete this code base. If you don't select delete this code base, it's not deleted.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I really like that. And then there's obviously more. I think it starts to go from a security story into a workflow team collaboration story. I think that's why you have that there. Okay. I mean, I think that's the pitch. It's pretty straightforward from there. What was the thing that you wanted to cover with me? Was it just the security angle?
Yes, security angle. Why don't you trust security personally?
No. It's not that I don't trust security. It's just that I don't understand how to sell security.
Fair enough.
I think you have to, like I said, put the fear of God in people, and most of the time, you have someone's job is security. Someone is like a CISO, or you have a breach, and then you're like, oh shit, this is important. But a lot of people don't, right? So that's something that is maybe there. Something that you might want to, I was thinking about when you were doing your pitch was, what if you had a Slack bot that every single time someone slacks something that was inside of onboard base, you'd be like, hey, like, don't do that. This is already an onboard base.
Yeah, so don't tell anyone. We're actually working on that, right? Something we actually thought is, you know what? you know, people actually, apart from sharing this locally, so something we actually added to onboard basis, you can share a key from one terminal to the other, right? You can just share a key from one terminal, but that's local, right? But people still tend to share sensitive things over Slack. So we're saying, okay, you know what? You want to share sensitive over Slack? Share it over a timed message. So after a couple of times, it disappears. So you don't have to actually actively manage it. Something we're actually thinking about and working on right now. We are not fully perfected the solution, so we can't put it out there yet. But we're saying, you know what? You want to share something over Slack? Fine, share it. But it's going to be timed. So at some point, it gets deleted. So you don't have to worry about the data breach or security risk within it, right? But that's the rare occasion where you want to share something over Slack. We are the exact ICP, meaning that we can't build onboard base without using onboard base. So as we continue to actively use it, we continuously improve it. And this is one of the use cases we've actually found.
Yeah, something that maybe, have you thought about, refining your target audience to maybe say like companies that work a lot with contractors?
Yes, so that is actually our positioning. We're positioning ourselves as companies, focusing on more on companies that work with contractors, which is why I mentioned 1 million contractors actually working in the US across 100K agencies, right? And this is actually built into onboard base. If you notice, when you add a teammate into onboard base, doesn't mean they have access to every project possible. You have to actually give them access to specific projects. So it's actually built for contractors in mind, which can also scale to every employee. So we're actually focusing a whole lot more on teams working with contractors and then expanding from there.
Got it. Why you focused on the US for contractors? I mean, typically contractors can come from anywhere.
Yeah, so it's not like we are fully focused on it, but we've gotten more customers from the US, right? Largely because of maybe my network, but we've gotten a whole lot of customers from the US. But lately, we've been seeing more customers from Nigeria as well, and we're looking to complete a partnership with a company with Nigeria who focuses a lot on onboarding, right? Which gives us more license to actually help more companies.
Okay. I guess one last question from me, and I want to open it up to anything else that you might want to talk about. What's the most ambitious version of this? And what kind of company do you think what kind of large company do you think that you can grow up to be like? In other words, like, is this like a HashiCorp? Is this like a, what's a model that I can pattern match to and say like, yeah, this is a similar trajectory?
So HashiCorp would be an example, but personally, I think HashiCorp is not uniquely needed. HashiCorp have several products within one. So it's like we're building Google for a very technical space. That's kind of how I see it, because it's uniquely needed, right? So you don't need to go outside it to use a different product, right? But HashiCorp is a huge example, and I actually look up to HashiCorp because their product I have actively used, and they build an awesome product, right? Okta is also another one, right? But Okta is not actually playing within our space. So if there was an M&A, it would be Okta or HashiCorp.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's also, HashiCorp Vault, I guess it's like a very similar
HashiCorp,
maybe at a different angle.
Yeah, HashiCorp Vault is largely targeted at security teams, meaning that you would need a security engineer or DevOps engineer to actually set it up, right? Yeah. And I've actually done that myself. But with us, you don't need that much technical knowledge. We actively say, build collaboration, we'll handle everything else within security. Just continue.
Well, I mean, one reason why is because it's open source, whereas you're not open source. So I think that's one of those things. It's just one of the adoption strategies. Okay. I think that's all the questions I had. Do you have any other stuff that you wanted to go over with me?
No other questions so far.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I'm gonna pause the recording or stop the recording.